What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here, live for your Week 13 NFL picks. We are back each and every week here on a Wednesday night. I pick every single game in the NFL. I preview every single game in the NFL. I let you know who I think is going to win. I let you know who's going to cover every game. Picking every game straight up and versus the spread. If you haven't already, make sure you do subscribe to the channel for more NFL picks each and every week. And you know what to do. Gronk! Spike that like button. Don't forget to Gronk spike that like button. Helps me out with the algorithm. Also, Gronk spike that notification bell when you do subscribe for the latest upload. And to know when I'm live. All right, you can follow me on social media at TheBottomLineView on Instagram, at Mitch Milani on Twitter. We are here to break it down each and every game from Week 13 of this 2021 NFL season. I'm rocking my Edelman shirt today. We got the happily miserable. I liked Tom Brady's quote about, he said Julian Edelman just tried to impersonate Wes Welker for his entire career. I thought that was pretty funny. What's going on, everybody? Nice to see Ultra, sports fan, Monty. What's going on, guys? How you doing, Caesar? How you doing, Hector? What's up, man? Jimmy, Lonzo. What's going on, boys? Thanks for joining me here live. Let's break it down. Let's get into the rhythm of picking some football games. Follow me at Mitch Milani on Twitter. I'm pretty excited for this week because there's a big game on Monday Night Football, as you guys know. So let's get to the games. Starting with Thursday Night Football. Thursday Night Football, we have the Dallas Cowboys at the New Orleans Saints. Now, I've seen this spread at 4.5. The question is, what is the value of Taysom Hill as the starting quarterback for the New Orleans Saints? What is really the difference between Taysom Hill and Trevor Siemian? Almost forgot who the other quarterback was. What's the difference between those two? How many points separates those two? And honestly, I think Vegas probably feels nada. It doesn't separate either way. So I look at this game and I say that I like the Dallas Cowboys. The reason I like the Dallas Cowboys is because they're getting pieces back. Defensively, they're getting DeMarcus Lawrence back, right? I think defensively, they've got a point to prove versus a pretty bad offense. They had a very, very embarrassing game versus the Las Vegas Raiders where they were shredded up and down the football field. And I do believe that people are going to overreact to that loss in the public because it was literally the most watched game since 1991 or 1990, something like that. Other than Super Bowls, most watched regular season game since 1991. So a lot of people saw that game. And I feel like if a lot of people saw that game, there might be a tendency for a lot of the public to actually bet the Saints here. Okay? But I personally feel like this is a spot where the Cowboys can bounce back. I think a lot of people are going to overestimate the Saints' defense in this one. And I'm going to learn from the last few weeks to not overestimate the Saints' defense. They're a good defense. There's no doubt about it. They're one of the better defenses. But they simply play too much, okay? The offense doesn't control the game well enough in every single one of these games. Whether it was the Bills game, the Eagles game, etc., the offense just doesn't do enough offensively to move the ball, possess the ball, convert third downs, all of that sort of stuff to keep the defense off the field. And when you're playing a good offense like Dallas, who has a multitude of weapons, who's getting Amari Cooper hopefully back, who's getting CeeDee Lamb back, who has Michael Gallup, who has Dalton Schultz, hopefully Zeke, And I want to see some more Tony Pollard, because I think if there was sort of a breakout player for the Dallas Cowboys on that big Thanksgiving game, it might have been Tony Pollard. I mean, we all kind of know how good Tony Pollard is, but I feel like he has been a little bit underrated to a majority of football fans, a lot of casual fans who know who Zeke is, but they don't necessarily know who Tony Pollard is. I think Tony Pollard made a name for himself in that game, specifically on that kick return, but it just feels like every single time the guy touches the football, he's electrifying. He's a difference maker, and I think with Zeke being a little bit beat up, we're going to see more and more Tony Pollard throughout the rest of this regular season and maybe even the playoffs. But yeah, I look at this game, I think the Cowboys win. I think the Cowboys cover. I think the Cowboys can efficiently move the football by sort of using some of their heavy sets with their tight ends in the game. I think they could take advantage, maybe Tony Pollard and Zeke out of the backfield. You kind of got to try to get Quan Alexander, Demario Davis in some man coverage situations. You got to pick on Paulson Adebo and try to stay away from Marshawn Lattimore. And I feel like the Cowboys have enough to do all of that. Now, the Bills kind of just ate them up through the air and used some quarterback-designed runs to efficiently run the football. May we see a little bit of Dak Prescott running the ball in certain situations on third down in the red zone. We could also see that as well. But yeah, I think the Dallas Cowboys, the challenge with their offense and defending their offense is you can't be too light in the box because they'll overpower you, and you can't really be too heavy in the box because they'll just throw on you. And the Saints are one of those few defenses who can probably stop the run if they go light box, but I just don't know if they have enough of the corners and the cover players to be able to play the way that they want to play. Man coverage, physical, too deep, and be able to take away all of these receiving options that the Cowboys offer, right? They're one of the few teams that have 3-4 targets. So I'm going with the Dallas Cowboys to win and to cover. My score will be 31-20. Now, on the note that's pretty interesting about this game, Taysom Hill. How will he be utilized in this game? That's really intriguing. I think the only chance the Saints have, and I think Sean Payton probably realizes this, is not getting into a track meet, is slowing the game down, trying to make it about their defense, and trying to make it about their running game, and hopefully they can get a healthier offensive line out in the football field and use Taysom Hill as a Jalen Hurts type player and kind of use him as heavy run game, use him as an extra number in the run game that you have to pay attention to, have some quarterback designed runs, do some crazy things, have some trick plays up your sleeve. I think that's the only way the Saints really compete in this game with Taysom Hill, is if they use him as a weapon more so than just a quarterback. I personally think Taysom is an upgrade over Trevor Siemian. I just don't know how much it's going to be, because when you overall look at the Saints offense, it just doesn't offer enough personality. It doesn't offer enough weaponry to scare any defense. And I think the Cowboys are going to bounce back in a big spot here on Thursday night. So I'm going to go with the Cowboys 31-20 here. Let's move on to the next game. We got the Arizona Cardinals at the Chicago Bears. Cardinals favored by 8, so about one score exactly, about as many points as you can get in one score. And it could be on the way up. I'm not exactly sure, depending on where you're betting. And of course, this is on a Wednesday, so it's definitely going to move if you watch this on a Friday or a Saturday. This one feels a bit odd to me, because I feel like the Cardinals at full strength should probably be favored by more than 8. But at the same time, Cardinals coming off a bye, teams coming off a bye have been a little bit slow out of the gate, right? We've seen a lot of teams, and this is statistically proven. Actually, I was listening to the Ringer Gambling podcast, which is actually probably my favorite NFL podcast outside of the Bottom Line View, of course. But I can only listen to myself so much. So, listening to those guys, Warren Sharp and company, I mean, they brought up some good points about teams coming off a bye. And I believe the number was like 16 out of 22 games hit the under of teams coming off the bye. And typically offenses coming off the bye this year and last year have kind of struggled. So that's something to pay attention to if you're just looking at teams coming off a bye. And that's something I definitely noticed with certain teams like the Bucs, for example. I definitely noticed that. A little bit of sluggishness, a little bit of kind of just rust, so to speak, because they haven't really been in the facility. They haven't really been getting those reps. And practices are a lot different now than they used to be when it comes to the bye week. You used to be able to spend a full week practicing and getting going and still remaining physicality. And it doesn't really have that anymore in bye weeks. A lot of the times, especially over a Thanksgiving bye week, where you're most likely with your family, you're most likely eating turkey, you're most likely getting fat. So there is a chance for a little bit of rust here for the Cardinals. But I do think the spark could be had if Kyler and D-Hop are back in the lineup as well. Could provide a little bit of a boost, although you never really know, because the Cardinals could also come in and, if you've been there before, you get some of your better players back and you just assume because you're the better team, you're the favorite, you're the top dog, that you're going to come out and you're just going to lay the smackdown on the opponent and it's going to be easy and you don't put forth that 100% effort. So those two things are factors, I think, in my opinion. And it's interesting that I'm talking about it this way because this is just coming off the top of my head. When I was making the score and thinking about the line, I wasn't necessarily thinking about these factors, but I do think they're definitely factors. So that's interesting. But the Cardinals defense, I think, is pretty solid. I've been impressed with their scheme. They're a fast defense. I don't think they're going to get overwhelmed physically by any means by the Chicago run game. The Bears really only have one receiver in Darnell Mooney that does anything. And sure, he might have some plays in this game. I'm not sure if it's going to be Fields or Dalton. I really don't. If you guys know, let me know. It's only a Wednesday, so I don't think we can be certain there. Either way, it's not really much of a difference in my opinion. I mean, Andy Dalton's probably a little bit better at facing the blitz and getting the ball away, but Fields is better at just making plays. So either way, there's pros and cons to both. When I look at this game, I think I just lean towards the team that is the contender here, even though there are factors that scare me, which is why it won't be a best bet. I like the Cardinals to win, and I will pick the Cardinals to cover because I just think teams like the Cardinals, who are supposed to be contenders, don't lose these type of games. And maybe you would think about an upset if Khalil Mack were playing, if Akeem Hicks and all these guys were healthy, and the Bears had 100% of their offense, and they had 100% of their defense. Personally, right now, when you look at that roster for the Bears, I just quite simply don't think they have enough talent to upset the Cardinals. So for that, I am going to pick the Arizona Cardinals 27-13. I think they're going to start off a little bit slow. It'll be close. And I just don't think that the Bears can really muster up enough offense to be able to score with the Cardinals ultimately in the second half. So I think the Cardinals pull away in the second half and come through and win this game comfortably, although it might not feel like it while you're watching it. It might be kind of that sluggish but somewhat convincing win for Arizona. 27-13. So I will pick them to cover, but it won't be like a super obvious cover. The next game is the Colts and the Texans. Colts are favored by 9.5. It is just under 10. This game is one that I really wanted to bet early in the week, and I'm going to be quite honest with you, I just forgot. And then the day later that I wanted to bet it, I looked at it and I said, whoa, the number just moved about 2 points, and that scared me out of my panties, so I just didn't bet. So the Colts favored by 9.5. I mean, still under 10 versus one of the worst teams in football. There is something about the Colts that does suggest maybe they're about to have kind of a down performance. And the reason I say that is because the Colts are a team that have been playing really good football, and they've been playing a lot of emotionally investing games, right? They played the Bucs in a game where that was a big game for them, and they ultimately blew a lead in that game. And that scares me a little bit, playing a divisional opponent, being a 9.5 point favorite. on the road. Like, this to me kind of feels like it might be somewhat of definitely a win for the Colts. And I look at the Colts and the ability to run the ball with Jonathan Taylor to dictate pace of play. I'm just not sure I'm willing to invest in the Colts absolutely hammering the Texans in this game. Like, I could see the game being somewhat close for a while. And these AFC South games tend to be somewhat close. So I'm thinking the Colts, I'm not sure if they're going to cover or not, but I do lean towards them covering as long as it's not a 10-point spread. At 9.5, I would take them to cover. But yeah, I see a lot of games in a row with the Colts where they've been playing really, really well. I like how they're playing on both sides of the ball, but a lot of it has been very emotional. And there might be a down spot here. There might be a letdown spot coming soon for Indianapolis. It could be this game. I'm not exactly sure. It could be a similar thing that happened to the Titans. So my score for this one is 30-17. I think the Texans hang around. But again, I think ultimately that fourth quarter, if the Colts have a lead in the fourth quarter, they're going to run the ball. Jonathan Taylor's going to eat the clock up. They're going to score a couple touchdowns. They're going to get some points at the end. Texans are going to be forcing it. Tyrod Taylor's going to be in the shotgun. There's going to be pressure on him. The Colts got a decent pass rush to get after it. I feel like if this game remains close the entire time, the Texans got a chance to the point where if the Texans are able to stay a little bit balanced on offense, they don't make Tyrod win them the game. And then if they can somehow, some way, force Carson Wentz to pass, they've got a chance, but I don't think it's a big one. So I'm going to go 30-17 Colts, and I will take them also to cover. Another favorite to cover. Next up, big game. We got the Chargers and the Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals favored by 3. If you guys are just joining and haven't already, make sure you do Gronk spike that like button. This is a big game in the AFC. We got the Chargers. We got the Bengals. And I look at this game and I say, I like the Bengals on the surface because I think a lot of the matchups favor the Bengals. But at a certain point, am I just going to continuously doubt Justin Herbert? And I'm not sure if I can. So it's a conflicting thing for me. Do I take the Bengals to just outright win this game, cover this game? Or is this a spot where Justin Herbert steals the show and wins the game? That's my question. When I look at the matchup, I think it favors the Bengals. And the reason I say that is Cincinnati in the last 2 weeks has been a run-first offense. They're looking to protect Joe Burrow by running the ball 30 times plus if they can. Joe Mixon has been one of the top 5 to top 3 running backs, especially recently, but I would probably say this year. And Joe Mixon is playing really well. This offensive line coupled, I should say, with Joe Mixon is run blocking really well. That's setting up play action. That's setting up the old school Sean McVay, Jared Goff offense, which Joe Burrow is executing in Cincinnati. Zach Taylor being a Sean McVay disciple. You've got Jamar Chase, who's a big play specialist. And I feel like the Chargers, because they're traditionally a team that likes to play too high, they like to have those 2 safeties deep. They're not really loving playing the run very much. This is my thing. Because the Bengals have Jamar Chase, it's not going to allow the Chargers to get more bodies in the box. They're going to be willing to lose a slow death. They're going to be willing to play that slow death type of defense where maybe they give up a lot of time of possession, maybe they give up a lot of first downs, but they're going to try to hold in the red zone, and they're not going to allow Joe Burrow to hit these big plays over the top to T. Higgins and to Jamar Chase, and that's the way Brandon Staley's going to play it. You already know it, right? But there it goes, right? The Bengals are going to be able to dictate pace of play, and they're going to be able to play on their terms, and that's how they want to play. Defensively, I think the Bengals have the most underrated defense in the NFL. I'm not saying it's special. I'm not saying it's great or anything. But I do think that the Bengals play competent football on defense. They're strong up front. They don't really allow you to run them over. They've got big DJ Reader and Ogunjobi in the inside. I think Trey Hendrickson has been a very nice addition to their football team this season, is playing very good football. And I think he could get after it with Justin Herbert there. Sam Hubbard is one of the more underrated, well-rounded edge players. He's not a super pass rusher, but he's very good at the little things. And their secondary, I've got a lot of respect for. They've got some playmakers there, Jesse Bates and Mike Hilton, and some solid corners as well, where I'm not too afraid of them, whether they're playing man or zone on Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. And as I stated, I think on my NFL review show, Mike Williams, I just don't think he's as good as people think. Like, if the big play is not there, and you give him a proper matchup, he's not going to destroy you. He's just a big guy, and I feel like he's not a well-rounded receiver. He's sort of a one-trick pony. So I think the thing with the Chargers is, side rant, I think the Chargers' skill players are just overrated, like in general. I think there's too much pressure on these skill players in this offense that I don't think is overly creative. And I don't think the Chargers are like super hard to match up with. Like, I think Keenan Allen is a good receiver. Am I scared of Keenan Allen when I go to sleep at night if I'm an opposing fan? Not really. He doesn't scare me that much. I mean, he's might going to catch 8 passes, but it's going to be for 85 yards. I could live with that. Mike Williams, as long as you don't blow coverage, isn't going to have a free touchdown. Austin Eckler is really, really good, but he's a running back. Where he scares you is in the passing game, and there's ways to take him out of that. If you send blitzes at him, make him pass protect, you can sort of take him out of the game that way. Jared Cook is old as dirt. I mean, a lot of it is just Justin Herbert doing his thing. And when Justin Herbert has played good defenses, when this offense has played good defenses, they haven't been the same. I'm not saying the Bengals are an elite defense with an elite coordinator the way New England is or Baltimore is or that sort of thing, where they've kind of been dismantled that way, or Denver is. But I feel like the Bengals are competent on defense and pretty damn good on offense. And I think that's enough for them to win this game. I think they're the better team. I think they're the more well-rounded team. And they have less weaknesses, which is ultimately the reason why I'm going to take them. They're also at home. And if this is a game where a West Coast team is traveling, and I guess not East Coast, but we've seen this game. We've seen this matchup. We've seen these two franchises play in the playoffs before, in the 80s, it was cold. The Chargers couldn't take it. I'm not sure what the temperature is going to be, but if it is cold, I think it favors the Bengals as well, and it's about that time of year where we're starting to get those weather games. So give me the Bengals here in this one. I've got this game 27-23. I think Herbert makes his plays. I think, these receivers for the Chargers, ultimately, a couple plays here and there. I got too much respect for Justin Herbert, but ultimately, I think the Bengals are able to control the game and come out the winner. So I will take the Bengals 27-23 to win and to cover this one in a huge AFC game that could determine who makes the playoffs. Next, we got the Minnesota Vikings at the Detroit Lions. Minnesota is favored by a full 7 points in this one. And honestly, this is a low spread for me. It does really feel like any team that is decent playing the Lions should be a bigger favorite than just 7 points. I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like if you're playing the Lions and you're the Vikings, a team that currently, I believe, is in a playoff spot, you should be able to cover 7 versus the Detroit Lions. So, I'm going to look at this one, and I'm going to take the Vikings. I understand that the Lions, over the course of history, and versus the Vikings, have had some games where, sure, they can upset the Vikings. It's a divisional matchup. But you look at this game and you look at last year's results. I just remember the Vikings absolutely steamrolling the Lions front. I think Alexander Mattison has a big game. There's nobody that can cover either receiver on the Vikings in this game. The Lions defense is going to have an absolute nightmare in this game. And then on the other side of the ball, nothing the Lions do excites me. I don't know if Swift's playing. Is he playing? I don't know. Either way, who cares? Jared Goff, whoever the quarterback is, sure, the O-line's pretty decent. But you're not going to live with this offense just dinking and dunking and dinking and dunking. I did like what I saw from Josh Reynolds a little bit in that game on Thanksgiving. But ultimately, I think it's the Vikings offense that controls the game and wins the game for Minnesota. So I'm going to go with a score of 31-20 for the Vikings. Big Viking spot. They are on the road. They need this game badly. They can't underestimate the Lions in this one. And I don't think they will because of the first game and what happened in that game where the Lions were close in that game but ultimately didn't pull it off. I think this motivates the Vikings from the start, from the kickoff, to have their heads square out of their ass. So I got the Vikings. The Giants at the Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins are number one. The Miami Dolphins are -4, and they have won, I think, 4 games in a row. 5 games? I don't know. Too many to count. They've won a lot of games in a row, and they're looking to get into the wild card position. Although I don't think there's a chance for that, honestly. There's just too many AFC teams with better records. But the Giants are a team that upset the Eagles last week. And the report is that Mike Glennon could potentially be playing for the Giants, which gives me no enthusiasm because Brian Flores is going to absolutely blitz the living you-know-what out of Mike Glennon, because Mike Glennon is quite possibly the slowest quarterback in NFL history. The pocket is going to collapse on a consistent basis. And I look at this offense, I think the Giants, to win this game, they need to commit to the ground. I think they need to run the ball because they need to be able to keep the Dolphins off balance. They can't allow Mike Glennon to just absolutely get lambasted in the pocket. But I will say this, the Giants defense is quality. You know, even with some of their injuries they've had, they're a solid defense. They're well coached. Both of these teams defensively come from the Belichick tree. And I thought the Giants did a really respectable job on the Eagles last week. It was very good. This week, I think you could see similar things with the Dolphins struggling offensively. But I just don't know if the Giants have enough on offense for me to pick the upset. So I'm going to take 23-13 Dolphins. I think ultimately they just don't have enough on the offensive side of the football, especially without Danny Dimes. So give me the Dolphins to win and the Dolphins to cover the game, 23-13. This is going to be a game you probably want to skip. It's not going to be super exciting, but as long as the Dolphins win, they stay on track. Believe it or not, the Giants are somehow still in the hunt, which makes no sense. But in this NFL, I guess it does make sense. Next game, we got the Eagles and the Jets. Eagles favored by 7 in this one. I've got the Eagles. I can't pick the Jets. Are you kidding me? The New York Jets are terrible. They beat the Texans. I just can't stand the Jets defense. I think the Jets defense is absolutely disgustingly awful. And I think the Eagles are going to run all over the New York Jets. Okay? The Eagles need this one desperately if they have any last gasp of getting into the wild card in the NFC. Jalen Hurts had a pretty bad game last week. He's looking to bounce back. The offensive line, I think, of the Eagles should be able to dictate this game. And the defensive line of the Eagles is playing really well. And I think I think they're able to get after Zach Wilson in this game, potentially cause a couple turnovers, potentially. And I think the problem here is if Zach Wilson starts to play too reckless and doesn't play within the offense and doesn't just take his checkdowns and take his underneath stuff, he's going to try to force the ball down the field into coverages where the Eagles often play everybody in the concession stand so far back that you can't even see the safeties in the TV screen. So I've got the Eagles here. I think that they just dictate the game through their rushing attack, through their offensive line. Jalen Hurts has a bit of a bounce back here, and I just can't believe in the Jets. They just suck too much. So I'm going to take the Eagles 30-16 in New Jersey to win. Next up, we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Atlanta Falcons. I'm playing with this coaster a little bit. It's kind of fun. I got my Patriot coaster. See it? But I'm playing with it a little bit. So I've got the Tampa Bay Bucks -11 over Atlanta. And I think, yes, Tom Brady's going to put on a show, obviously. And the funny thing about Tom Brady, could you guys guess what his per game stats are in touchdowns to interceptions? Tom Brady's stats versus the Atlanta Falcons are 2.8 touchdowns per game and 0.3 interceptions per game. Let me say that again. 2.8 touchdowns per game and 0.3 interceptions per game. That is a real stat. Look it up. Tom Brady's touchdown to interception. It just never ends. I've got the Bucks. Here's why I've got the Bucks, and I like them to cover as well. I think the Tampa Bay defense is going to dominate the Atlanta Falcons offense. Atlanta's offense got nothing. They've got nothing. And I think the Tampa Bay Bucks defense is getting a little bit healthier. I think Carlton Davis will be playing in this game. I think the D-line of the Bucks is going to dominate in the run game as always. And I think without Calvin Ridley, who has given the Bucks fits in the past, Todd Bowles is going to say F you, Matt Ryan, and send every single blitz known to humankind. And Matt Ryan in the pocket under pressure is just a sitting duck. So I think that is the reason the Bucks cover. Obviously, they're going to put up points, probably in the 30s, right? But I think the real story in this game will be how the Bucks defense plays. So I'm going to take Tampa Bay 31-17 to win and to cover in an NFC South rivalry game. The Bucks are just looking to pick up a win here, stay on pace, stay in vicinity for the number one seed in the NFC. And next week, they take on a tough Bills team at home. So they're going to have to prepare for that one. But look for sound offense from the Bucks and crazy defense. Atlanta, did they got a shot in this game? I don't really think so. I just don't think they have enough from the offensive perspective. Cordell Patterson's a nice story. Kyle Pitts is MIA. Don't know where he's at. Defensively, I just don't think they've got enough pass rush. I don't think they've got enough overall weaponry-wise to threaten this defense. I just don't think Matt Ryan can continuously drop back versus this front four, versus the blitzes that are going to be sent here and pick apart the Bucks the way that maybe he could last year or something like that. I just don't see how that's possible here. So I'm going to take Tampa Bay 31-17. Next up, I'm not going to be too long on this one. Jacksonville at the Los Angeles Rams. Rams are favored here by 13. And personally, I'm not going to bet on this game because I have no idea what kind of Rams team we're going to get. My personal opinion, I think the Rams are going to get back to the running game in this one. And I know I said that last week, but I think all the reports about Matthew Stafford being injured are just a bigger push to run the ball more if you're the Rams, especially in a game where you're probably going to win regardless. So I think you're going to see a lot of running the ball. I think you're going to try to see a Matthew Stafford who is going to avoid, throwing it into tight windows. I think the Rams are going to play this rather conservatively offensively. The Jags have no offense. Like, their offense is sad. They can't move the ball. They can't pass the ball. And this is a Rams defense that I think is overrated. But there's no way the Jags are competing here in a game where the Rams score over 20 points. Like, there is no way the Rams score 20 points and the Jags win. The Jags have to beat this team like 13-10. The same way that they beat the Bills is how they've got to beat the Rams. And that just doesn't happen twice in one season. You can't expect Josh Allen and the Jags defense, especially on the road, to just completely shut down the Rams. It's not going to happen. So Sean McVay's obviously motivated. The Rams are very motivated. And I think they come out and they have a good performance here. Like I said, defenses has a good showing, and then offensively rather conservative, but they get back to the basics. So I'm going to say the Rams win 27-13. Not super impressive. They're not going to blow them out of the water, but I just think the Jags don't have enough on offense. Again, another team that doesn't have enough on offense to consistently play with a good team in this league. So I'm going to go with the Rams. I guess I'll take them to cover, but I'm not super enthused about it. Just the way they're playing, I can't really bet on that. Next, we got the Washington football team at the Las Vegas Raiders. Raiders are -2.5. This one is really challenging, and I don't even remember who I picked. I think ultimately what I decided to go with was Derek Carr. I think that's ultimately what I decided to go with. I think another factor in this game is that the Las Vegas Raiders are coming off of a longer rest, which should allow them to not only get rested, but also prepare for Washington. Here's the thing about Washington that I really respect. What they've done recently is versus teams that they know are better than them or just good quarterbacks, they've been able to run the ball. They've been able to pick up first downs on third down. They've been able to extend drives. They've been able to win time of possession. Okay? Washington has won games because they're winning time of possession. If they can do that versus the Raiders, they can win this game. I think this game's going to be close. I think this game is going to low-key be one of the better games of the week. And I think both offenses can have a bit of success in this game. I really like how I saw Derek Carr played, man, on Thursday on Thanksgiving. I just can't fade him after that performance. Hunter Renfro's a baller out there. I hope Darren Waller's playing, although I don't know if that's confirmed. And they did run the ball better in that game versus the Cowboys. They might utilize that a little bit to slow down the front four of Washington. If Washington wins, I think it's going to be because of their ability to possess the ball. But when you look at a Raiders defense, I don't think they're that half bad versus the run. I don't think they're necessarily going to be manhandled up front. And I think they can get a bit of a pass rush in this game. I've also been impressed with Casey Hayward in the back end for the Raiders as well. This one, man, I could see you picking either team, and for that reason, the only way I would bet this is just taking a teaser with Washington. But ultimately, I'm going to take the Raiders to win 27-24 on the last series. I'm just a fan of the way both teams have played in these last week or two. So both teams are kind of fighting, right? I mean, the Raiders are fighting for a playoff spot in a tough AFC West, and Washington's fighting for one of the final seeds in the NFC. So this game could really go either way, and I don't have a great handle on it. All I'll say is I'll take the better quarterback here and the team at home to pull it out in the end. Next, we've got Baltimore at the Pittsburgh Steelers. I like Baltimore a lot this week. I think there's a lot of motivation for their offense to get back on track. I know they're facing a challenging Steelers defense, but I think Lamar Jackson let you know how pissed off he was last week. with their performance, with his performance, 4 interceptions. And I think there's a chance Lamar has a big game here because he's very motivated to get back on track. What I haven't been impressed with the Steelers is their ability to stop the run. I think the Ravens can find a way to get a little bit of a ground game going. I look at Mark Andrews and Marquise Brown being consistent threats for this football team through the receiving game. Rashad Bateman as an added element. The only way the Steelers remain close in this game is if their front just absolutely dominates the Baltimore Ravens. And I don't know if John Harbaugh is going to let that happen. He's too smart of a coach. Lamar can make plays avoiding pressure. He can make the smart play most of the time, except for last week. And defensively, Baltimore, again, really well schooled, really well coached. They're going to have a good feel for how Pittsburgh's going to try to attack them, what to take away on Pittsburgh. You're not going to be able to run the ball on Baltimore at a consistent rate. You're going to have to pass the ball. And I just think the Steelers' passing game right now is far too inconsistent. I think the Baltimore Ravens front is also a tad underrated right now. The way that Oweh is playing, the way that Bowser is playing, those two guys off the edge are playing really good football. And yeah, I don't think the Steelers are going to make a ton of plays on offense, which will ultimately put the ball in Lamar's hands more often. And by the time we get to the second half, they're going to be able to grind out a victory. They're going to be able to kill the clock. They're going to be able to tire out a defense of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I will take the Baltimore Ravens 23-13. It's not going to be pretty, but it's AFC North football. It's Ravens Steelers football, and I think the Ravens find a way to win this one 23-13. I will take them to cover. The next game is the 49ers at the Seattle Seahawks. The 49ers are favored by 3.5 in this one, and Seattle is at home. There's always in the back of my mind where I say, it's in Seattle, it's Russell Wilson, it's Pete Carroll, but I've said that far too many weeks in a row to this point to believe in it anymore. I look at the 49ers, the way they're playing. They're a top 5 NFC team right now at this moment in time. And I think the 49ers offensively are playing really, really well. The only thing that scares me about this game is Debo not playing in the game because I think he's been so important to this team. But I think that just means more Brandon Ayuk and more Elijah Mitchell, and that's okay with me and my fantasy teams. So I'm going to ride with the 49ers because of the way that their offense is playing. They're finding a rhythm with their running game, one of the best run offenses in football. They're finding a rhythm with their play action and their screen game. They're finding a rhythm with big plays. Jimmy Garoppolo is playing really efficient football, getting rid of the ball quick, not hanging in the pocket too long, not losing the game, most importantly. On the defensive side of the ball, 49ers will be able to get a pass rush here and there. I do worry about their cornerbacks in this matchup versus Seattle's wide receivers, but then you remember that the Seahawks offense is a complete, utter disaster at the moment. So I just can't trust this offense. I can't trust Russell Wilson, and I can't trust myself to never resize an overlay. I've got the San Francisco 49ers 31, Seattle 23. I think Seattle maybe scores a touchdown at the end to make it appear a little bit closer than it was in a classic fashion. But I think San Francisco mostly handles this one 31-23. Give me the Niners. Sunday Night Football. We've got the Denver Broncos at the Kansas City Chiefs. The Broncos, over the past couple of years under Vic Fangio, have done a good job at containing Patrick Mahomes offensively. The problem with the Broncos playing the Chiefs, in my recollection, is their offense has struggled continuously in games where they have had an opportunity to win or remain in the game, but their offense hasn't been able to make enough plays, hasn't been able to keep the Chiefs off the field. And the Chiefs defense a lot of times in these matchups has really won the game for Kansas City. A lot of times I watch this game and I say Denver's defense is doing their part as we expect, but the offense simply isn't doing enough for Denver. Could that be the same in this game? Which does make it a little bit of a scary 10-point spread. This is the what what's going on here spread of the week, where I'm like, it appears to be too many points, but is it really too many points? That's kind of what I'm questioning. I think Denver's playing well. The Chiefs are coming off a bye, which I mentioned. A lot of teams have struggled, especially offensively, coming off a bye. I will say if there's one man and one coach who's really good coming off a bye, it has been historically Andy Reid. Although, I think he hasn't covered in 3 of his past 4 off a bye. I believe Teddy Bridgewater is getting the start for the Broncos. They've got a lot of their receivers and their playmakers back. I think they can run the ball fairly well and stay balanced. And that might be the key to this game. If the Broncos can play the way they play, which is possess the ball a lot, which is to shorten the game, which is to run Javonte, run Melvin Gordon, and just keep Teddy Bridgewater in his comfort zone, I think Teddy can cover here. On the other hand, if Denver's not able to run the ball, if they're forcing Teddy into third downs where he's having to make throws, that's where you get into trouble, like recent matchups where the Chiefs, Spagnuolo's going to have a blitz or two that cause a strip sack, fumble, cause a pick six, and that's where the game unravels. I think the Broncos defense can do a very good job at containing Mahomes with what they do with their quarters coverages, and their secondary is very talented. They did a great job versus Dallas. I think they can do the same versus the Chiefs. And there's not really much of a run game threat from the Chiefs. I also consider that if the Chiefs look at other teams' game plans versus the Broncos, they can see a liability in the run game that they can take advantage of, which would also shorten the game from that perspective. So in my opinion, this is an under spot. I think because of that, I feel like Denver should cover the 10, but ultimately, I think the Chiefs are the better team. I think they win the game. I just can't trust Teddy Bridgewater to make enough throws to win in Arrowhead. So I will take 24-17. The Chiefs win another game that isn't super impressive. It's kind of ugly, but ultimately, they get the job done, and they put another W on their record. So I will take the Broncos to cover, but the Chiefs to win. And Monday Night Football. We got the New England Patriots at the Buffalo Bills. Bills are favored by 3, a field goal in this game. I checked the forecast. It's expected to have some winds. It's expected to have some gusts. It's expected to have potentially some snow in Buffalo on Monday night. The Bills have been up and down in recent weeks. They played the Colts. They looked awful. They were manhandled in that game. Now, I think it is fair to note that they didn't have a couple of their best run defenders in that game, which allowed Jonathan Taylor to dominate the game and dictate the game. On the other side, Josh Allen got back on track versus the Saints. I think the Saints had a horrendous game plan in that game where I wasn't a fan of it. I didn't enjoy it, and I thought they played them poorly. We know that's not going to be the case for New England. They're going to have a good game plan, especially because they know this offense well. They know this offensive scheme well. Brian Daboll is a New England guy. So that being said, they saw it twice last year. They're going to have a prepared game plan for this offense. And I think if the Bills win here, I think it's because their defense stops the run, and I think they kind of force the Patriots to beat them by throwing the ball down the field. They tackle well, right? They stop the short passing game. They stop the screens. They stop the runs. And they force Mac to consistently throw the ball down the field, especially if it's snowing. On the other side of things, I think for the Bills to win, they've got to find a little bit of balance. I think they've got to be able to run the ball a little bit. I think they've got to be able to find the Emmanuel Sanders and the Cole Beasley matchups, because I'm pretty certain Stephon Diggs is not going to get his in this game because he's going to be doubled the whole game. And my thought is, I think Belichick's probably going to put JC on Emmanuel Sanders or Gabriel Davis, whoever's out there, and I think he's going to put Jalen Mills and a safety on Stephon Diggs. That's probably the way it's going to go. You're going to see some zones, though, a lot of zones. But I think generally in certain situations, you're going to see double teams on Diggs, as Belichick has done in the past. But I think the way to go versus this offense is a majority of the time playing too deep is a majority of the time playing, zone defense like the Colts did. Try to make Josh Allen hold the ball and let your pass rush go to work. I think New England, a real strict thing for their game plan is going to be keeping Josh Allen in the pocket. I don't think they're going to allow him to get outside the pocket. They're going to try to force him to stay in the pocket, and we're going to see how that's going to work out for them. I think if New England wins this game, it's because their pass rush wins the game. I think if their pass rush wins the game, if Christian Barmore has a big game, if Matthew Judon has a big game, if we see a couple blitzes here and there that free up Jamie Collins, who's back, or Dante Hightower, then potentially New England could get the stops and win the game. My intrigue about this game is the passing game for New England, because I think that matchup is fairly even. I think like New England and Buffalo's offense versus New England's defense is a very even matchup. And I think New England is kind of suited to slow down the Buffalo Bills, and I think it's going to be difficult for the Bills to consistently move the ball on New England. I think it really is going to consistently... It's especially if it's snowing. I mean, that's going to totally wreck their game plan because they're not wanting to run the ball a lot. But then you look at the other side, and I feel like New England's pass rush, and if New England can get a solid passing game like they did versus the Titans, they'll win the game with certainty. With certainty, they'll win the game. If New England passes the ball successfully in this game and gets a good pass rush, they will win the game. That is a certainty. Now, I don't know if that's a certainty, though. I don't know if that's going to happen, okay? I don't know if that's going to happen. It could happen. It might not happen. But I look at Tre'Davious White being out. I feel like that's a massive loss. And I feel like that opens up the opportunity for, honestly, when you look at it man for man, I kind of think like New England has advantages versus Buffalo's secondary. I could be wrong about that. Maybe I'm underestimating some of their corners, but I don't really look at the rest of their corners and say they're really threatening to me. And it's not like they play a lot of man-to-man. They do typically play a lot of zone. But, I mean, Josh McDaniels has seen this defense many times. I don't think there's going to be anything that the Bills really show Mac Jones that's going to be that new from what they showed Tom Brady in the past. It's going to be interesting, really interesting. I think this is also a game where ideally you would like to see Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith be involved in the passing game. You know, if you can effectively pass through two tight end sets or multi-tight end sets, I think that would kind of be the way to go, you know, keeping the extra linebacker on the field for Buffalo in that way as well could be a way to approach it. But yeah, play action is going to be big for New England in this game. The run game is obviously going to be a huge part of this game because that's the way New England can control the game. And if New England's able to run the ball, again, they're going to win the game. I do think, though, I respect the Bills. I think they're going to do a decent job against the run game. The question is, though, you know, with Tre'Davious White out, how does that change what they do? This year, they've been more of a two high safety type of team where they do kind of concede the run. So do they drop into a one high safety and bring that other safety down in the box because they respect Harris and they respect Stevenson and they respect New England's running game enough? Or do they play the way that they play because they're a little bit more scared of their cornerbacks in this game because they don't have White? So do they keep playing too high? If they keep playing too high, you know New England's going to have the numbers. They've got the power in the box. They've got the size advantage versus guys like Jerry Hughes and Ed Oliver. They're simply too small, you know. So it's going to be a very schematical matchup. So I feel like it's going to be a lot of runs. It's going to be a lot of play action from New England. You might see the tight ends involved here. And I think defensively, you're going to see a lot of zone. You're probably not going to see a ton of blitzing. You're probably going to see a lot of four-man rushes in different creative ways. And, you know, sort of what we've seen versus Mahomes in the past, if you guys recall. You know, maybe some stunts where they kind of get the inside guys coming outside to contain and the outside guys coming inside, right? So there's a lot of different things to think about and talk about with this game. And it's a very fascinating matchup from a schematic perspective because both teams are very good. Both teams are very talented. Both teams know each other well. And I think my problem is I think far too many people are going to think about this game the way that they saw the games last year. And I would just really say don't think about those games too much. When you look at New England's roster last year, it's not even close to what it is this year. The team is two totally different teams. It's not even comparable to what this game is going to be like, right? If you really want to compare it, you might want to closer compare it to 2019 and what happened in those matchups. So, I mean, I feel like New England is playing better football. I think New England is the better team. I think New England has a matchup in this game where I would lean towards, New England in a lot of areas. It's not to say Buffalo's not going to have success. Buffalo's not going to move the ball. Buffalo's not going to play their offense well. I feel like New England, they've got the power football team on offense that has kind of been the Bills' kryptonite. They've got the defense with a lot of hybrid, athletic kind of edge players that can chase down and contain Josh Allen. They've got a very good secondary that can cover really well. They can play a multitude of coverages that can confuse young quarterbacks. And ultimately, as long as New England doesn't turn the ball over, I think they should win this game. So as a Patriots fan, I personally would be happy with them just beating the Bills once. But when you look at the matchups here, this would be the bigger one to win because it's Monday night. You're in Buffalo. It's the first time you play them. It's a huge game in a spotlight. This would be the more impressive one, even though you play them at home the next time around. So I'll take New England 23-17. I think the story at the end of the game is New England dictating the game through their rushing attack, Mac making enough throws here and there, but ultimately their defense being really, really sound, not allowing a lot of big plays and possibly causing a couple turnovers in this one. I would definitely lean towards New England in this game if the weather has an impact, because I do think if it's snowing, it does help New England, because I think that just helps New England in a way take away the deep passing attack of the Bills, which is kind of the most threatening part of their offense. So I'm going to go with New England 23-17. I'm going to believe in my team to pick up this big win. And I am very intrigued and very excited to watch it. I will be streaming it on Monday night, so I hope you guys join me for that one. 23-17, New England wins. I'll take the 3 points, and this could possibly be a best bet for me. Let me know how you feel about that big game on Monday night, New England, Buffalo. I got New England getting the upset, 23-17. All right, guys, that is it for Week 13 NFL picks. If you enjoyed, don't forget to Gronk spike that like button. Subscribe to the channel for more Bottom Line View NFL picks just like this. And also Gronk spike that notification bell for the latest upload. It's Mitch. Thanks for watching. We will see you tomorrow for the best bets this week. Peace.